Hi, my name is Fabrizio. I'm from Italy and I'm a T99 fan. I used to play with my T99 when I was a kid, and I was asked by Ciro Barile for the Italian T99 user group to try a new device, the Ape Disk 99, made by Jokenboer from New Zealand. And it is a disk emulator. You can emulate up to 3 disks, and you also have a 32K RAM expansion, FTP and NTP connection. So you can connect to an FTP server. Basically, you can connect to your PC and exchange files and images from your T99 to your PC. And through the NTP connection, you can get time and date in real time from the web. I know there are similar devices like the TP, but I haven't had the opportunity to try, so I cannot compare it with other devices. And before we start, I just want to apologize, first of all, for my broken English, because I'm not an English native speaker, so I hope everything I say will be understandable. I apologize for the images because I have to put my camera in front of my TV to show what I do. Because my videographer doesn't work with the T99, because the T99 output is a bit tricky. And last but not least, I'm not a technical expert of the T99 architecture, so I won't say anything very in details about the architecture or the electronics of the APEDSK 99. Just the simple use, because this video is intended for people who want to access to disk drives and enjoy programs and everything you can do using disk drives. So let's start. Okay, let's have a closer look of the device. The Ape Disk is made of 3 cards. This is the sandwich. On the top there is the Ethernet shield, the Ethernet connector to use the FTP features, a reset button, and a micro SD slot. In the middle, the heart of the device, the Ape Disk card with all the circuits, and the expansion port connector and a LED to show the Ape Disk is accessed by the T99. And on the bottom, the Arduino, which works as a microcontroller for the device. You can power the device either using the USB cord, which is also useful to connect Arduino to the PC if you need to upload the code, the sketch from the Arduino software, or you can use the simple power cord, and it's very small. One last thing. An interesting update is that the new version of the Ape Disk don't need any soldering, so a cable loom will be supplied and you just need to put the 3 layers together and connect the cable, and that's it. So you can assemble it yourself. Very easy to do. My setup: Final Grom 99 in my T99, tape recorder, InnoHit TV, and here's the Ape Disk connected to my T99. Let's reset it. It's connected to the Ethernet cable for the FTP connection and through the USB cord to my PC. And that's it. Okay, so let's go to my PC. The first thing we have to do is to go to the GitHub page for the Ape Disk built by Jokenboer. You can find all the files you need here with all the instructions. So you download all the files in your local directory, and there you go. I downloaded everything here, and we are especially interested into the Arduino folder where you can find the code for the microcontroller, and the SD card folder where you can find the files you have to put on your SD card. Let's have a look at Arduino folder. These are the files that you can open in your sketch editor. So I downloaded the sketch editor from Arduino page, and so there you go. This is the Arduino environment where you can open your sketch files. You can modify the configuration file Here you can set your Ape Disk IP address, your FTP server address, NP server address to get the time, user and password for your FTP server, and the time zone. That's all. There is anything else you have to do. Then you can compile and upload the sketch to your Arduino through the USB cable. Let's have a look at the files I put on my SD card. I created a few directories where I put disk images. The default directory is the disks directory. You can have as many directories as you like, as long as they are in the root directory of the SD card and they are not longer than 5 characters. And these are the 2 files that you need in the root of the SD card. The DSR, the disk service routine code, that has to be injected by the Arduino into the TI99 when the Ape Disk runs. And you can also have definition file for the lowercase fonts. So you can have as many lowercase fonts as you like if you want to change in TBasic and T-Extended Basic the fonts of your programs. Also, I set folder my PC which I shared with the FTP server. So Ape Disk and the FTP server can share this directory where I put some images, and I can transfer to the Ape Disk or from the Ape Disk images on this folder. These 3 special disk images are the default disk images that will be mounted on the Ape Disk at boot time. I decided to have on disk 1, disk 2 the standard editor assembler disks, and I created an empty disk on the 3rd disk unit. The disk images are a standard DODs that you can open with the classic 99 or with, for instance, TI99 DIR, which is a nice program to handle images. Okay, let's try the Ape Disk on the TI99. Let's go to the TBasic. First command is called ahlp, help, and it gives you the list of the commands. You can see the commands grouped by the number of parameters and very short description of the command. So let's start from the first one, which is a reset command, but it also gives you the status of the disk and the version number. Okay. Another important command is smap, which shows the mapping of the 3 disk units. There are 3 disk units emulated by the Ape Disk, and if you call the show map command, you can see each disk and its mapping. Name of the file. These are 3 default images, Ape Disk 1, 2, and 3 with an underscore at the beginning, but of course you can change it. The directory in which the image is located. The list of the directories on my SD card are here. The default directory is the disks directory. And you can see the logical name of the disk, the date of creation, the size, the free space, and if the disk is protected or unprotected. If I want to show the file on the image, I can use the ldisk command, and the parameter is the disk you want to check, disk number 1. You can see the file name, file type, and other information, size, and so on. I can do it for each disk. Disk 2. You can see that the first two disks are basically the editor assembler standard disks. The third disk is something that I created, so there are some basic programs. If I want to load the hello program, for instance, I can use the standard old command, disk3 hello, and that's it. You have the program loaded into the memory. Another interesting feature is that if I don't put the parameter, if I don't select the disk number, the Ape Disk remembers the last disk you have been working on. So in this case, I was working on the disk number 3, so if I don't put the number 3 as a parameter, I can see the files in disk number 3. Just to show you that the emulation of the disk is perfect, as I said before, the disk number 1 and number 2 are the images of the editor assembler disk. If I reset my TI99 and I go to the editor assembler, I select the editor assembler from my final GROM. I'll use the standard editor assembler, and if I go to edit, you can see that the editor loads fine. Also, if I want to try the Tombstone game, which is a demo, you can find disk number 2. I can load it, and it seems like you're working on a real disk. It loads fine, and you can see the game after a few seconds. Here we go. And of course it works fine because it's like you've been working on a real floppy. Okay, let's go back to the T-Basic, and now I want to show how you can list the images on a directory. Now we are on the default directory, which is the disks directory here. And I want to list the files inside the directory. You can see the directory name in which I am now. Image file, so these are basically the files without the .dsk extension, the logical name of the disk, and the type of disk, if it's single side, double side, and so on. I can flip through the files. The files are paged, so I can go from a page to the other one using the space bar, for instance. And if I want to stop from listing, I can press enter. Okay. I want to go and see what's on the games directory, so let's change directory. Change there. I go to the directory games, and then if I list the directory, you can see the images within the directory. Let's suppose I want to load Tetris, so I'll map to mount Tetris image on disk number 1, on the first unit, on unit 1, so I can do this, mount disk 1, which is the drive that you want to map the image on. Tetris number 9, so name of the image. And now if I look at the mapping, I can see that disk number 1 is mapped on the Tetris disk, and you can see the information about the image. Now I want to show what's in disk number 1. Whoop. Sorry. Okay. and here are the files. Okay. So basically, two important commands are ldisk to show the list, the file list inside the disk, and ldir to show the content of a directory. Now I can see that there is a load file, so probably it is an extended basic program. I can run it from the extended basic, so I'll choose extended basic from the final ground. I'll load the standard extended basic, but the Ape Disk works with any kind of extended basic. And the game is loading. So Tetris is loading, and after a few seconds you can see the game loaded. Okay, here it is. I got Tetris game loaded and I can play. Okay. I'll show you that you can use the basic tools, the standard tools for disk drives with Ape Disk, and it perfectly simulates the disk drive. For instance, if I run the disk manager here, okay, it's a bit dark. Let's change the, okay. If I want to check the directory, for instance, you can see that you can work exactly like you were on the floppy disk and do whatever you like. This is the disk number 1, which is currently mapped on an editor assembler disk. So you can copy file, move file from a disk to another disk. You can delete file. You can format disk here. You can swap disks as well. So everything works perfectly. So it's like having 3 floppy units connected to your TI-99. Another thing that I want to show is that the Ape Disk works with other extended basic versions. Let's go, for instance, to the extended basic 2.9, and you can see that it works fine here, like it was in T-Basic. Same thing if I go to the TML graphic adventure. You can see it works exactly like it did on T-Basic. There is no difference. Even if you work on our extended basic, which is a extended basic that I really like. You can see that it works fine here as well. And exactly like it worked in T-Basic, you can work with the RXB as well. Okay, let's show some other commands. Let's go back to the T-Basic. If I check the current mapping, you see the Tetris is on the first disk as we did before, but if I reset the Ape Disk and I check the mapping again, I can see the default has been reloaded, so the disk number 1 is on the default Ape Disk 1, which was the editor assembler disk number 1. And the default directory is again the disks directory, which is the starting directory. Okay, another interesting command is the time command, which gets the time and date from the NTP server. Time and date is used every time you save a file or you format a disk or you do anything with the disk, but also you can have a string with NTP value. I have to create an empty NTP string with 16 characters, and now if I call the time function and if I check the NTP string, I can see exactly the date and the time in which I am working now. Okay. Another command, interesting command, is the char definition for the lowercase character. It's a real lowercase character because you can see in TBasic and the standard extended basic you got this smaller capital letter, but it's not a real lowercase. So if I run it, you can see that it loads the real lowercase. I have to put it into a basic program, otherwise the TI99 reloads the standard characters. So if I do that, you can see that the lowercase are loaded, and the file with the character codes are stored into the root directory of the SD card. So you can, maybe in the future, you can have different fonts and decide which font you want to use in your programs. So it's a nice feature which goes beyond the disk management. Okay. What else? There are two commands that I won't explain because they are very easy to understand. You can protect a disk or unprotect disk, so you can make a disk read-only or read and writable. Okay, other two important and useful commands are disk, which rename a disk image. So you first have to map it into one of the 3 drives, and then you can change the name. And also you can remove an image from the current directory. So for instance, if you are inside the directory disk and you want to delete from the directory the image Tetris, you just have to call APEDSK with the name of the image Tetris in this case. For instance, I am in the directory disks at the moment, and let's suppose I want to delete the image. These are all the files that I've got in my directory. You can see also the default here. I know that there is an image test that I want to delete, so I can remove the test image from the directory. Now, one of the most interesting features of the Ape Disk, this feature lets you connect to your PC and get file from an FTP server. So I installed an FTP server on my PC, and there is a directory that I set on my PC, and I can exchange files from that directory. For instance, I've already deleted the test image, so I can retrieve the test image from the FTP, and the Ape Disk copies the file test.disk from the FTP server and it puts into the current directory. I can do the opposite. I can do the same thing the other way. So I can put an image file from the current directory to the FTP server, to the directory on the FTP server, so on my PC. If I do this, the file is transferred on my PC. So this opens a world in front of you, basically, because this way you can exchange easily images from your PC to the TI99, and I'll show you how. Okay, let's see now this very interesting thing. If we run the classic 99, I got my directory here where I mapped my images, so I can share this directory with the TI99. And I decide to map on my emulator classic 99 the test disk image here. So let's map it. Let's do it again just to be sure. Okay, here you go. Okay, now if I go to the disk manager, let's go. Okay, disk manager 1000, nice program. I can see here what's on disk 9. Okay, this is the disk 9 which I mapped on my emulator classic 99. Now if I go to the TBasic and, for instance, I found a program, a TBasic program on the internet, and I want to run it on my real machine, I can easily copy it to the emulator, to the classic 99, and then I'll send it to the Ape Disk. I can paste here. This is the file I copied from the web. And now I'll save it to the disk 9, which is mapped on the test disk image. Let's call it web. Now let's go to my real TI99 and get the file from the FTP folder. Okay. I can get image test. I can mount the test disk on disk number 1. Okay, here it is. I can see what's on. You can see there is the web program that I've just copied and pasted into the emulator, and if I load it here, I can run it from my TI99 in just a few seconds from the web, my real machine. And there you go. Merry Christmas. Okay, another example, if we want to transfer a file from the PC, let's use the same test disk image. I will run Convert99 written by Tursi, a beautiful program to convert images from my PC to TI99 format. Let's get this image, a Maserati image from the web. I can convert and save the image in format T extended basic format. Let's call it Mas for Maserati. Okay. And now let's put the file on the image that we shared with the T99. I want to put it here so we can run the T99 here and get the image we generated and copy on the image disk here. I can copy the file and okay, now the file MAS is on the disk. Now we go back to the T99. Okay, let's try. First of all, we get the test image on our directory on the SD card. Then we map the image on drive number 1. And now if I check what's on the disk, okay, I can see the Maserati image that we can run. And after a few seconds, there you go. Easy. Last experiment would be to do the other way around. So we write a program on the T99 and then we send it to the PC. So let's do it. Okay, let's save it to the disk. Let's call it love. And then here you go. We got the program we just written here. And at this point, we do the other way around. So we put the test image that is at the moment in the Ape Disk to the FTP server, and that would replace the previous test image on the folder on my PC. Let's check it. We refresh the image on the PC, and there you go. The file love is here. As I mentioned at the beginning of my video, you also have the opportunity to configure the APEDSK99 without installing Arduino software. So you simply run a basic program, you get it from the disk, you run it, and then you are asked about your configuration, your APEDSK IP address, your FTP server IP address, your NTP server IP address, so you can get the date and time from the web, and of course the username and the password of your FTP server. You're also asked about your time zone, and there it is. There you go. You have configuration done, simple to do. So basically we saw all the commands and everything you can do with the Ape Disk. Probably there is only one command we didn't talk about, which is the call ADSR. So basically, if you remember, we can have DSR file on the SD card, which is the machine code run by T99. So if you have different version of the DSR file, you can write the name here. The last thing that we didn't mention, but it's quite straightforward, is the 32K RAM that the Ape Disk provides. So we run the test just to show that the 32 expansion memory works fine in the Ape Disk. We'll speed up the test just to show that all the banks are recognized and fully working. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you liked the video and enjoy and have fun with your T99. Bye.